Hello, everybody. This is Mr. Philipek, and again, here is my sidekick, CJ.
Hello!
And today we're going to talk about a very uplifting topic, cancer.
What's cancer again?
Well, cancer is when you get sick.
Oh!
Sometimes cells, when they grow, they start dividing uncontrollably. Like, do you know how many cells you started off as?
No.
1. How many are you now?
8.
8. Yes, he's 8 cells. Look how big these cells are. Very
Hi.
nice. Anyway, cancer results from when we have these little things in our DNA called genes. Make sure you stay in the camera. Hello. That control all the different cells that are in your body.
I'm learning about the human body, so I might be knowing about this.
That's awesome. Okay. But anyway.
And you got these white blood cells that fight the cancer off.
Sometimes.
Not a lot.
Anyway, cancer can be caused by something called a mutation. Have you ever heard of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, it's the same type of thing. So those Ninja Turtles who could be ninjas, but still a turtle, that is a mutation. Now, you and I, sometimes we have mutations. Let me get that eyelash off you. All right? And sometimes those things can lead to crazy cell growth and division, meaning that... What are... You're crazy.
There's nothing.
Okay. Anyway, the genes that cause cancer are called, can you pronounce that? What's this word?
Oncogenes.
Oncogenes. Very, very good.
I just guessed it, and I can't believe I got it right.
That's awesome.
I
Now,
know the next word.
normal genes are coded for, how do you say this one?
Proto-oncogenes.
Yes, proto-oncogenes. And there's what responsible to make sure that you always grow the way that you should be growing. Okay? Now, sometimes, very nice, these proto-oncogenes can be converted to like a cancer-causing gene, which causes a tumor. Yeah, oh no is right.
Oh,
right,
cool.
so
now
this slide here, which is right out of their book, Figure 1823, shows all the different ways that these proto-oncogenes can turn into mean genes, we'll call them.
Some genes, and
right.
So like regular genes, and then they get a little power, and then they get more power, and then they're superpower.
Well, that's not too far from the truth. And what happens here is that sometimes genes or DNA can kind of change places. That's what we call translocation here. And what happens is that we get this new little kind of bat signal in the cell. And what happens here is that all of a sudden, these little green balls here are proteins that code for how often our cells should divide. Now, we should only have a certain amount, but sometimes if these proto-oncogenes get mutated, we start producing more than we need to. Whether it is through DNA changing places, what we mean by gene amplification means that all of a sudden we get one gene and we make buckets and buckets of other genes.
Like 20 or like more?
20 gazillion.
Wow.
Yeah, that's a lot.
Not even a number.
Make sure you get in the camera here. And
not
so,
even a number.
Sometimes these proto-oncogenes turn into regular oncogenes, which are what's going to lead to cancer here. And sometimes they can get super nuts. Right? You know how you are with a lot of candy?
Yeah,
very nice. Super nuts. Okay, what we call this hyperactive. All right?
I'm hyper.
Now, again, we already kind of talked about this. So movement of DNA within the genome itself. Okay. If we get near one of those promoters or those bat signals, we get an increase in transcription. We amplify it, right? So it means we increase the number of copies of the cell-growing gene. Or we have a point mutation, right, which causes basically another increase in how often cells divide. Yeah. But good thing is we have these cool things called tumor suppressor genes.
Ooh, yay!
Which basically stops our cells from going nuts, kind of like you are right now.
Okay.
Okay?
Cool
now, the problem is that if we have mutations, right? Oops. If we have mutations, what happens there is that it decreases how we suppress or hold back. All right? And so, what do these suppressor proteins or these genes do? They repair our damaged DNA or our blueprint that makes us us. They control how cells stick together, right? And then they stop our cells from dividing. All right? Well,
Ooh, Razz
there's
gene.
the Razz gene.
A Razz
So there's a Razz proto-oncogene and what we call the P53 tumor suppressor gene.
Oh, I thought it stood for page 53.
Well, it could be page 53, but not in this case.
Okay.
But anyway, the Razz proto-oncogene, right, what it does is it controls our cell division. It tells the cell, hey, you need to keep dividing. Now, if we make one that becomes, let's see if I can make this little pen here work. If we make one that's hyperactive, okay, which means that we have buckets and buckets of trying to tell our cells to divide and divide and divide. We end up with this big ball of cells. You know what we call that?
What?
A tumor.
Oh.
All right? But luckily, we have another gene here called the P53 that's supposed to suppress making those tumors. Go ahead.
Okay.
So here's what happens. This is what we call a G protein complex. You know what that is?
No idea.
That's okay. Neither did any of them. But the idea is that here we have these little growth factors that stimulate the production of this Razz gene. Now what happens is that we kind of have this little cascading thing, right, which eventually results in us making some of these proteins that helps our cells to divide.
It looks like an emerald aerial that's pointing this way, like, goes to the next page.
Right. Well, the problem is sometimes a mutation comes in, and we see up here, is that we get this hyperactive, this nutty Razz
like when I'm going
protein.
super hyper.
Yeah, and so what happens is, instead of just making one little arrow, we're going to make like 50 gazillion.
Oh.
All right? So that, okay?
That's the next page.
Now, on the other hand here, we have this little P53 gene, which is supposed to stop that. That's why we kind of make it look like a stop sign.
Yeah.
All right? And so if this DNA gets damaged, then these proteins aren't made, and we don't tell the cell cycle to stop. So what happens here is that if we mutate this gene, we prevent the stopping of the cell cycle, and that's not always good. All right? Go ahead. Flip the slide. So take a look at this. This is like a great slide for students to study.
Okay.
Because on this side over here, on the left-hand
So,
side,
like, you make 3 arrows.
we make buckets and buckets of arrows,
Yeah.
and that's because of that spazzy Razz gene. And on the right, we're showing what happens if that page 53 gene that you like to call
Yeah.
doesn't get made.
Yeah, like, X is a stop sign. That means you can go hyper as you want.
Right. And so what happens is we get increased cell division, which means it's kind of a
Which means if
precursor
they
to
connect
cancer.
together, it looks like a pill, but doesn't have different colors. It only has one, like, dot in it.
Okay. All right, that helps you out. And so what happens then is that that's what results in cancer. All right?
Now we're going to
And so
the
here,
deadly part.
when we talk about the DNA level here, cancerous cells are characterized by at least one active oncogene and a mutation of tumor suppressor genes. That means that we have one gene that tells our cells, divide, divide, divide. And at the same time, we don't have any genes that tell them to stop. So we get this big ball of cells, which sounds like it would be great, but not in our bodies. So now we're going to talk about colon cancer.
Oh,
You know what this is? What is that?
It's like, I see it on my human body picture, but I don't remember what it is.
It's called the large intestine,
Oh, yeah.
otherwise known as colon.
And inside it looks like a brain, like a square brain.
Sure.
And I know it's like that.
Right, this is where your poop comes out.
Yep, it's called a bladder.
Yeah, well, that's where your pee comes out. Your poop comes out of your rectum, but we won't get into that here. So
Yeah,
here,
don't get
this
into
is what your colon should look like. Normal.
Wow.
Okay. Well, what happens is let's say all of a sudden we lose or get a mutated tumor suppressor gene. All of a sudden we get this little ball of cells, and we call it a polyp. All right? And when you get older, like age 50, they stick a camera up your rear, right? And they're looking for these little polyps. And they take these little grabber things, and they grab them out so you don't get sick. Okay?
Oh, sweet. But
now, remember we have that Razz gene where we have the super spaz?
yeah.
So we take that little ball, right, and
It's called the adenoma.
yeah. How do you say that again?
Adenoma.
That's great. And everybody out there is enjoying your pronunciation there. But we call this a benign tumor because if you notice here, notice how this ball of cells, it's not invading anywhere, left or right. It's kind of staying right. That's what we mean by benign. But if we keep losing suppressor genes, keep going.
Whoa!
all of a sudden, what do you notice about these cells? They're starting to spread.
Yeah.
And that's what we call malignant. And that's what cancer is. Okay? And so right here, they're just showing you if we lost that P53 gene with some more mutations, this spreads. So as far as cancer is concerned, early detection is the key. All right?
We're back in on words.
Yeah. Well, what's interesting here is that there's been a lot of studies with cancer. A lot of studies with cancer. Like this BRCA1 and BRCA2 genes are commonly found in females or individuals who end up with breast cancer. Okay?
I hope that doesn't happen with you.
All right? And, well, thank you. I hope it doesn't happen with me either. Okay? Now, that's pretty much it on cancer. So we tell everybody, hey, thanks for listening.
Hey, thanks for listening.